Point out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 500th edition.
The Magic 500.
The Magic 500 with George Harvey. Energy Week, I should say. I should give the proper title here. 500th edition of Energy Week with George Harvey, which is me, and the amazing Tom Fennell.
Let me get used to this mouse here.
Well, you're supposed to say in the flesh, Tom.
Well, I haven't figured out
The
what I
mouse?
look like yet.
What you look like. Ah, there you go.
There's Tom Fennell in the flesh.
Okay, we are doing our 500th edition of Energy Week. Today is the 1st of December, 2022.
All day.
All day.
Yeah.
We started this show in November of 2013. So it was a little over 9 years ago.
Wow.
And
Time flies when you're having fun.
it sure does. And our coverage is going to start on Wednesday, November 23rd. And if anybody wants to look at the original files, the original sources for the articles we're going to be talking about, you can go to geoharvey.com, which is the blog site that I post these things on a daily basis. I spend 5 hours every day posting that blog. Every day.
I can believe it. Oh,
Christmas morning.
Yeah.
You know, I'm there Christmas morning at like 4 o'clock in the morning. I should be there doing my blog.
Well, that's middle of the afternoon for you.
No, it's not actually. 4 o'clock in the morning is like 8 o'clock in the morning for everybody else. But if I sleep past 4, I figure that I've overslept. You can find the files. There's a couple of files. They're basically identical that you can use to see the script for the show that we're doing, and they're both down below. Let's see, that way, down that way. You can find them on your computer
now in
screen.
2 places.
I'm in 2 places? I think I'm in 3, 4.
Well, you could be.
Anyway, should we start this show, Tom?
Well, let's see how you're talking, so I'm going to put you up.
I'm not going to talk. We're going to take a look at this guy. See him? The picture.
I'm trying to figure out how to. Oh, there he is.
There he is.
There he is.
Tom has been out of the studio for several weeks, and I think there we go. This guy is Tom's friend. His name is Henry. Is that what it was?
That's Kuala Lumpur.
A Kuala Lumpur. Good. This is from CNN. What do you have for a title, Tom?
Australia will see more extreme weather events putting strain on economy. Well, that's not unique to Australia.
No, it's not.
That's happening worldwide.
Absolutely it is. Australia will continue to see...
Put that, the koala is up there.
Yeah. We'll continue to see increased extreme rainfall, heat, and more dangerous fires. Its government agencies warned. The changes are happening more rapidly and will put further pressure on Australia to transition its economy away from fossil fuels.
Well, everybody's got to do that.
Everybody.
We've got to stop burning things.
Yeah, absolutely. But the Australian government, up until this new government,
well, they're in bed with certain people, I think.
Yeah, they were extremely resistant to.
Well, a
changing
liberal government is not liberal.
That's true. Yeah, liberal in Australianese means conservative, and the word they use for liberal is labor.
Yeah, right, labor, right.
That's right. And the United States, by the way, I think is the only English-speaking country that uses the word liberal the way that it does.
Is that so?
I think so.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, should we go on?
Well, let's see. Yeah, we got another one coming up here. We got a picture. I'll see if I could get it up.
A
there
picture of a gas terminal.
We could spend a half an hour trying to figure out what's going on in that picture.
Oh, I have no idea. I have no idea where that picture is. You know, it came in with the article, and I think it came in with the article. It's a Uniper image, but I have.
Well,
I have no
whatever,
idea.
for whatever reason, that's a gas terminal,
Yeah,
and the article came from BBC,
that's correct.
which stands for the British Broadcasting Corporation.
Yes, I believe that's correct.
And it starts out saying, and I quote, Ukraine war, how Germany ended reliance on Russian gas. This is significant.
It's really remarkable.
It wasn't supposed to happen.
I think Vladimir Putin did not want it to happen. After a scramble to secure alternative supplies, lights sparkle in German Christmas markets. Germany's assembled system to manage without Russian gas appears to be working for now, and engineers have finished building the country's first liquefied natural gas terminal in record time.
That's a sign of the times. Liquefied natural gas, they're building a terminal for it.
Yeah.
And of course, it goes without saying, is it going to be green natural gas? I don't think so.
Eventually it
Eventually
might
be green
but
gas.
one of the things about investments in green natural gas is that can be done anywhere.
Yeah.
Anywhere you've got electricity. So they could do it in Germany if they have too much electricity. I don't know what's going to happen with the future of that stuff, but for now,
Well, the market's going to determine it. I mean,
yeah.
there's a few small companies going to try to maneuver the market.
right.
But,
A couple of months ago, we reported that there were 51 ships along the coast of Europe just waiting to
just
unload.
sitting there. Well, some of them
Natural
are
gas ships.
actually they're just warehouses.
That's right. And
I mean, they're sitting there, but they're
yeah.
just warehouses.
Yeah.
They're not taking that gas anywhere.
Yep. Okay, we should go on.
Well, this is from Thursday, November 24th, which happened to have been Thanksgiving Day.
That's right. We're covering 8 days.
Yeah, that confused me.
Yeah, because last week we couldn't record on Thursday,
Well, we've
so
got
we
an
recorded
interesting
on
picture
Wednesday.
coming up, and I'll try.
We
and,
do, and this is from Clean Technica.
Well, if you look real closely, you'll see there's a truck there,
Yeah.
and it says it's a diesel truck, which it very likely is.
Yep. It's just to the right of the
All you
center
can
of
see
the
is
picture.
if you look for the headlights.
Yeah, you can look. You can
That's
see the
about all you
headlights.
can see.
Okay, this is from Clean Technica.
Well, California contemplates a ban on diesel trucks.
Whoa.
Whoa!
The California.
Well, this is a time of the times.
It is,
it's
absolutely.
Something's got to be done.
Yep.
By the way, this came from Clean Technica.
I already said that.
Oh, did you say
I
that?
did. You
Sorry
weren't
about
paying
that.
attention. You don't always pay attention to me, Tom.
Want to slap my hand?
No, I don't. I do not want to slap your hand. Okay, the California Air Resources Board is proposing a plan to phase out diesel trucks. The proposed regulations would prohibit the use of new diesel trucks in and around busy railways and ports by 2024.
That's coming up pretty
That's
soon.
really soon. One report says a goal is to remove every diesel truck and bus fleet from California roads by 2045.
I think that's doable.
I think it is, yeah.
But getting rid of these trucks by 2024, they're going to have to hustle to do that.
Well, it's only the new trucks. What they're saying is they don't want new
New
trucks.
diesel trucks.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
That's the loophole.
That is indeed.
And in 2045, it's every diesel truck.
Every diesel truck for the whole state.
Well, economics
Yeah.
is going to do it.
Economics are going to do it. Okay, our next picture is going to need to be
Oh,
explained.
this is interesting. It's called
isn't it?
drilling for heat.
Yeah, that's right. This is from Clean Technica.
And this is interesting because right here in Brattleboro, we do this. The Housing Authority built a new apartment house complex up by the high school.
Okay.
And that's heated by geothermal.
Okay.
They drilled wells there
Yeah.
deep enough to get hot water.
Huh. Okay.
Drilling for heat.
Drilling for heat.
Dandelion Energy, ready to expand ground source heat pumps.
The Inflation Reduction Act has given the heat pump industry a lift. Reportedly, Dandelion Energy raised $70 million more to expand its business from a group of investors, including Breakthrough Energy Ventures, and Lennar, one of the largest home builders in America. Now, Dandelion Energy, as I recall, is part of that same big business that includes Google.
Oh, is it?
I think
Okay.
so. I forget the name of the business.
Elon Musk has something to do with it.
No, I don't think so. I can't remember the name of the company. I'm not good at all with names, and I never have been. But Dandelion is a kind of a subsidiary that started up in New York State. And I don't know if you can get Dandelion in Brattleboro or not, but the deal was they would come look at your property, see if it's reasonable to think in terms of drilling for geothermal heat there, and if they can, then they will drill in under the right circumstances. They will drill,
And they
and,
pay for
and
the
they will
drill.
install the system, and then they will charge you for the heat
For
you
the use of the system.
You don't have to pay anything up front to do this, and
Yeah.
they guarantee.
They do it, put it in place, and they collect monthly.
And you save money right from the get-go.
Not a bad idea.
And then after 10 years, they're out of the deal, and you, if you need new equipment, you'll have to get new equipment, but it's no more expensive than putting in a oil-burning heating system. But except for one thing, and that is those wells are expensive. And
Yeah.
when they leave after 10 years, you own the well.
You own a well, so you.
So
Well,
you-
that's both good and bad.
Yeah.
You got to deal with the well. That's
Well,
your
those
problem.
wells are, they're like this big.
Yeah.
So capping them is a pretty easy.
You know,
thing to do.
there's a part of Windsor County. There's this village up there. It's a part of a town, but it's a small village.
Yeah.
And there's about half a dozen houses. All look the same. They're all white.
Yep.
All the same design. And they were built in the 30s. And they're geothermal. Back then.
Yeah.
So they knew what was going on.
Yeah, they did. By the way, could you put that picture back up again,
I
please?
ought to be
Tom?
able to do that.
What that is the drilling rig that's used, and that's bigger than it looks. If you look very carefully, there's a wagon or something that holds pipes, and then there's the drilling rig
There's
itself.
the drilling rig itself.
And there's a man standing between the two. And
Oh yeah.
he's not.
Those things are big.
Those things are big, but they're
Yeah,
small
there
enough
he
that
is.
they
You can see 'em.
They can fit on people's lawns. So this is okay. You want to go on?
Well, this is going to become more and more popular because there
think
is
so.
a lot of heat in the ground.
There sure
in
is.
various places.
Yep. Okay. Our next item is from CNN, and we have a picture of a tiny forest. You've heard of tiny houses? This is a tiny forest.
Yeah, this is a tiny forest, and there's a picture of it, and it's up already. How did that happen?
Oh, I did it. I'm one of those people who can psychically change things, or maybe I do. it
Well,
with
the
my
article
mouse.
calls it a tiny forest. It comes from CNN.
Yep.
And the article says, and I quote, urban rewilding is bringing wildlife to the hearts of cities.
Yep.
Not a bad idea.
I don't think it's a bad idea at all. One vision of the future of cities foresees a return to what they had once been built on, the wilderness, complete with forests and wild animals that were lost long ago. Good pictures with this article.
Huh?
I recall that there were good pictures with this article.
I didn't look up the original article.
Oh. That vision is beginning to be realized
I
in
usually
major
do, but at
cities.
this time I didn't.
Okay. Around the world in the shape of urban rewilding movement. They had pictures of beavers. I think they had beavers living in London.
I can believe that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, they would probably thrive.
I'll tell you, there have been things here in Brattleboro. There was a time when I think there was Fisher living in Brattleboro.
Yeah.
And I'm certain of this, there were otters down by the co-op along the Whetstone.
Okay.
Because I saw the trails that they made.
Okay.
They had trails that they could use for scooting along and then taking a dive into the water, like a slide.
Well, that big pond-like area by the retreat,
Yeah.
that's got a lot of wildlife
Yeah.
There was a set of eagles, a
Yeah.
nest of eagles that
Yeah.
live in there. I don't know if they still are or not.
Well, the eagles have been around this area for a while.
But they were there, right
Yes,
there. They
right
had a
there.
nest there.
Yeah. I saw an eagle when I lived in Winchester. I was up at the top of a mountain, and I saw an eagle flying about 15 feet higher than the electric lines and telephone lines along the road. It was a bald eagle, and it was coming straight at me. And I could watch it for a couple of 100 yards as it flew up the hill mountain that I lived on. Mountain, if you count it as being anything upwards of 1,000 feet, which people in Colorado would say, what, mountain? But it flew up, and then it went across the meadow that we lived in, and it disappeared into kind of over the woods. And my son and I stood and watched for about, I don't know, half a minute to see if we could see it going over the mountain, because it lived along the Ashwillet River.
Okay.
And we stood there and watched.
They like living by rivers, you know?
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, this huge bird came out of the woods. And it was flying in exactly the opposite direction from what the eagle had flown. But that wasn't an eagle. It was a blue heron.
Oh, okay.
And I've seen a bear in Brattleboro, over behind the Canal Street School.
I got that beat. I hit a bear once.
You hit a bear in Brattleboro?
Well, it was in southern Vermont somewhere.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this bear came running out of the woods, and it was a young bear.
Yeah.
And I knocked him arse over tea kettle there.
Oh, dear.
And he took off going through the woods as fast as he possibly could, so
Yeah.
he wasn't hurt.
Well, I hit a deer once, and the deer, I think, might have been hurt, but it took off.
Yeah.
And there was very little damage to the car. I had managed to slow the car to practically nothing before I hit. Anyway, we should be talking about this stuff.
Yeah, we're
and
catching
we
up
should-
to Friday,
we should go on to...
November 25th,
Yeah.
and we got a picture of a car.
Yeah, BYD Kin, Q-I-N, and this is from Clean Technica.
And I will read what the label says.
Okay.
BYD, which is the name of a Chinese automobile manufacturer.
I think it's the biggest electric car maker in the world.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
It makes buses, it makes trucks. This
Yeah.
is a huge
Yeah,
operation.
it's a huge
And
operation.
BYD stands for Build Your Dreams.
Which is a good Chinese phrase, as we know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, BYD may begin sodium-ion battery production in 2023.
Right. Rumors flying about in China claim BYD plans to be producing sodium-ion battery cells in the second quarter of 2023 and use them to power some of its own electric vehicles. The company claims these rumors are false, but you know how people claiming things. But they come to us from a source generally regarded as reliable.
Well, I don't know anything about sodium-ion battery cells. You know?
I've been watching these things for my blog for several years, and the deal with sodium-ion battery cells is they work a whole lot like lithium-ion, except
Using sodium
they
instead of
use
lithium,
sodium,
which are very closely chemically related.
very closely related. Sodium weighs a lot more, and the atom is a lot bigger. So those are the problems with those systems. But sodium, sodium is easy to get. You go to the
It's all over the place.
You go to the store
The
and-
oceans are full of sodium.
That's right. If you want good sodium, go to the store, buy Morton's non-iodized salt.
Oh, yeah?
Kosher salt.
Kosher salt,
If
yeah.
you want sodium, you don't want iodine with it.
No, you're...
Anyway, there have been problems with building a sodium-ion battery, and it was generally regarded as something that would probably not be used in an electric vehicle because the batteries have to be bigger.
Battery's big, yeah.
But
I have remarked about this on a show, too, before. I'm going to do it again.
yes,
In 4 years of study in electrical engineering, I think we spent 47 minutes on batteries.
I thought it was 47 seconds.
It came and went. It was on a Tuesday.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, when I was in college,
Yeah.
I didn't study batteries at all.
Okay.
Okay, our next item is from
another
Clean
picture
Technica.
coming
We have
up
another
here.
picture of another
If I
car.
get this picture here.
This particular car is
That
a
is a
Tesla,
Tesla Model 3. and it came from Clean Technica,
Yep.
and it says, how long does a Tesla battery last in Australia?
Well, the warranty on a Tesla battery is 160,000 kilometers, which is 100,000 miles.
Roughly.
But this guy says, but I am fast coming to the conclusion that this figure is no longer relevant. I read recently that some battery recyclers in the United States were complaining that the batteries are not degrading fast enough, and they need more stock.
That threw me for a loop. I couldn't figure that one out, but now I see. They are recycling batteries.
Yes.
So new batteries or old batteries aren't coming in for them to recycle
Yes.
fast enough.
Yeah.
And they don't know what to do about it.
Believe it or not, Jason Cooper's Tesla, he has been driving for over 10 years.
On the same battery.
He's got, I think it's over 200,000 miles on it. He said it's driving like it did when it was new, and it's the same battery.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's far fewer moving parts. Far fewer parts that can go wrong.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's really trouble-free.
Yeah.
Why it took so long to enter the market? Well,
Part of the reason it took so long is
big business.
I think big business, yeah. I don't think big business was going to introduce the Tesla. Okay.
Well, let's move along here. We got another one
A picture
coming
of
up.
a wind turbine.
Let's get this picture up there.
And this is from
Is that a wind turbine?
I think it is.
Looks like it, doesn't it?
It does. This is from CT Insider.
Well, CT stands for Connecticut.
That is correct. And Insider is INSIDER, not IN space CIDER.
Aha.
Okay.
Insider, yeah, as opposed to outsider.
Outsider or whatever.
What higher natural gas prices mean for Connecticut's clean energy push?
I found this article really interesting.
Did you?
Really interesting. United Illuminating and Eversource, Connecticut's two largest power utilities, announced last week that electric bills for most customers will increase between $79 and $85 per month. That's a huge increase.
It's a big increase, but at least they still have gas.
Yeah. As a result of the global natural gas shortage precipitated by Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
That's got me baffled.
Well, I mean,
it's Putin. Putin's trying to do it for his own benefit, I think. But
I think
it doesn't make a lot of sense.
I think Putin's miscalculated this whole thing so badly it's crazy.
Well, there's a growing movement in Russia to get rid of the guy.
Yeah.
He does not seem to know what he's doing, and people are recognizing that.
I look at this and I say, I've studied wars, okay? From the time I was a teenager. My father was kind of a war hero.
Uh-huh.
You know, I mean, he wasn't Audie Murphy.
But he commanded a tin can, didn't he, in Pearl Harbor?
He was the engineering officer on a destroyer mine layer.
Oh, yeah?
The type of ship they called a four-piper.
Okay,
Which is a small destroyer from the First World War. And he was on that ship for a couple of years, and then he got on to
a regular destroyer.
Fletcher class destroyers, the Converse and the Bryant. Yeah, and he got a Bronze Star, and he had 13 battle stars, which is the greatest number of battle stars of any individual in the Pacific.
Oh yeah.
But he was in it.
Well, he was right in the middle of it.
He was in the
right
middle
place,
of it,
or the wrong place at the right time.
I studied
or the
wars.
wrong time.
Yeah, his ship was at Pearl Harbor.
Yeah,
when it
you
was
told
bombed.
me that. Yeah.
I studied war. This is something. My father was kind of a hero.
Ain't gonna study war no more.
And so I know a lot about it.
Yeah.
And I've never seen anything that really compares to the consistent tendency of the Russians and Putin in Ukraine to fail. They lose everything.
Well, they're not sure setting new records where they're playing around now in the Ukraine.
I don't know. But we should probably move on.
Well, we got another picture coming up here.
We do.
And let's see if I can't.
This is a picture of Europe's biggest battery.
Come on, you. Oh, there we go. Here we go. That's a big battery.
That's a big
If
battery.
you look in that picture, you might see some vehicles.
You might see some vehicles.
Give you
and-
some idea how big those.
Yeah, over on the left, you can see some cars.
Yeah, there's cars over there. Yeah, over there on the left. You can
Okay,
see.
this is
Those
from,
things are big.
yeah, they are. This is from Tech Spot.
And it says, and I quote, Europe's biggest battery storage system goes online 4 months early.
4 months early.
Yeah.
Okay, renewable power company Harmony Energy Limited has completed work on Europe's biggest battery 4 months early because energy demands are expected to rise due to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The system can store 196 megawatt hours of electricity.
That's a significant amount.
That's
Now,
a
we're
significant
talking about
amount.
A megawatt is 1,000 kilowatts.
That's right.
So a kilowatt hour is what you pay for at your house.
Yes.
So it is 1,000 times that.
This is 196,000.
196,000
Yeah.
times that. You're right.
So this is a lot of electricity. And the article, if you go to it at TechSpot, will tell you the number of households that will support for a certain number of hours. I didn't put it into the
It's
thing.
a
but
significant number.
it's a significant number, yeah. Okay,
Let's move along
we're
here.
up
We
to
got
Sunday.
Sunday, November 27th.
That's right, and I've already put the picture up. This is a
Well, I'm going
picture
to
of
get that picture up so that people can see it.
yeah. This is a picture of Kiev.
Looks like Kiev, doesn't it?
Kiev. It's and this is from BBC. And yeah, go ahead and read the title.
How much damage has Russia done to power supplies?
Yeah,
That goes on with what we were just saying.
absolutely. After facing setbacks in the battlefield, Russian forces have been concentrating on attacking Ukrainian power facilities.
Why?
Because they want everybody to be as miserable as they can possibly
Well, that
be.
makes sense.
In other words,
that does make sense.
they are trying to stop this war or win the war or whatever by terrorizing the Ukrainians.
Well, they're not doing too well about
They're not doing too well. Ukrainian's national power company says damage to the electric installations is so great that 50% of demand cannot be met.
it. Now that's
That's significant. And this is happening as winter starts. So the Russians have been sending cruise missiles. They're actually like what are called drone aircraft, but they're suicide drones. They crash into something and blow up. They've been sending those things over to destroy the infrastructure in Ukraine, so people can't turn their lights on, can't run their furnaces, can't have water.
yeah.
And that
So
is
they're trying to cause people to get upset.
they're trying to make people as miserable as
Yeah.
they can. There's a technical term for it. This is a terrorist war.
Okay.
They're running the war by
They're
terrorism.
trying to incite terror.
It is considered to be within the rules of war to bomb a power plant, not a nuclear power plant, but a power plant, if that means that your
That's
enemy.
great. The rules of war. We got rules for war now.
Yeah.
There's something wrong with that concept.
Well, it's been around.
I know it.
You know, but they are allowed to bomb a power plant that supplies civilians as long as the purpose of bombing the power plant is to prevent the military from functioning normally. But what they've been doing is they've been bombing power plants that are 1,000 miles away.
Yeah, away from, yeah.
And they're just, this fits in with bombing maternity wards and stuff like this is typical of the kind of stuff that we've been seeing. Okay, we should probably go
Yeah,
on.
we got a picture
We
coming
have a
up
picture
here.
of wheat.
Let's see if I can't get that picture
And this
up.
is from the BBC.
Looks like wheat to me.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? I can tell. That's not barley. That's not rice. That's not, not oats. It's
Well,
wheat.
the title tells me it's wheat.
Yeah,
It sure as
and
heck looks like wheat.
I don't know. I would not know what that is by looking at it. But
Well,
the
this
title
thing comes
says
from the
it's wheat.
BBC,
Yes.
and it is stating, and I quote, could centuries-old wheat help feed the planet?
This is
an interesting concept.
It's an interesting idea. Could the key to feeding the planet with a changing climate be hiding in a 300-year-old museum collection? That's the hope of scientists combing through 12,000 specimens of wheat and its relatives, which means oats.
So they're looking at old wheat that they
Old-
grew 12,000 years ago, or
Well, no.
300 years ago.
300 years ago. And they're looking at wheat and they're looking at
And
barley
it has
and they're looking
different
at...
characteristics and features than what is generally being grown today.
Right.
And they're looking to see if this might make more sense.
That's right. And they have wheat and its relatives, oats and barley and so forth, archived at the Natural History Museum as climate change,
Well, that's
pests
what's happening.
and
Climate
diseases.
change, pests and diseases.
Yeah, as
Pressure.
they
These wheat
put
crops.
pressure. What we've done with wheat is kind of like, breeding animals so that they're going to be as big as possible and make, cattle, as much milk as possible.
But there's second order consequences to that.
There are second order consequences. You just hit the nail on the head. Okay, should we
Let's
go on
move along
to...
here. We got a funny looking picture of a junction.
Of a junction? Is that what that is? I never would have guessed. One of my favorite laws is a law, speaking of junctions, it's a law about train crossings, which is a type of junction.
Yeah.
And this is a law that was passed, I think, in Kansas, which was the state I was born in, and this might explain something about me. And it says that the law says when two trains are stopped at a crossing, neither one is allowed to move until the other one does.
Now that's a sensible law.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay.
Oy vey, as they say in Brooklyn. Let's look at that junction again.
Yeah, this is from Clean Technica. Oy vey. Vey means pain. Did you know that?
It translates as "oh woe,"
Yeah.
such as "oh woe is me," but it's,
Yeah, that's right.
It's gotten something.
It's a joke.
Certain
It's like,
parts
"Oh,
of Brooklyn
pain.
they say everything.
Oh, pain! You're
Oy
giving
vey.
me pains. Oy vey.
Well, this is a junction, and it's showing better growth of dendrites, which is those little things in the middle there.
Yeah, that's right. What do you got for a title?
MIT researchers solve dendrites' mystery to creating smaller and lighter batteries.
See, this is the thing. They're constantly going after research to make these batteries better, and we're not even halfway to where we could get. We're not halfway there yet. We're
Well,
just going to see the batteries.
Batteries were pretty much forgotten for the first half of the last century.
Almost the whole. last
Almost the
century.
whole.
Yeah.
I mean, there was the batteries in the car,
Yeah.
and there was the batteries in the flashlight,
And basically.
and that was about it.
Yeah, batteries. I think in hearing aids maybe, but
Yeah.
that was it.
Well, the telephone companies were using batteries.
Yeah, they use different batteries.
They were big. They
Yep.
were wet.
Yeah, they had-
big things with copper sulfate in them, and
Yeah.
they call them crow's foot batteries because the anode looked like a crow's foot.
Okay.
And it dissolved.
Yes, that's right.
And so to regenerate the battery, you just put a new crow's foot in it.
Yeah. A breakthrough in dendrites by MIT researchers may lead to building a new type of rechargeable lithium battery that is safer, lighter, and more compact than existing models. That's a concept that has been pursued by labs all over the world, but apparently the people at MIT found it. And what you're seeing in the picture, let me
I'll
put
get the picture
that
up
back
again.
up. What you see in the picture is from the contact on the left, dendrites have been growing, and they've been growing across the surface of this thing. Eventually, they would hit the other side, and that would cause a short circuit.
I was just going to say they'll short it out. Yeah.
But they've got it. They've got these dendrites, so they can train them away from that, which is why they get part way and then turn away.
That's interesting.
Isn't it? Okay, we're up to Monday.
I was going to say this. There's probably been more, some more development in batteries in the last 10 years than there was in the last 100.
I think you're right. I think that's absolutely correct. Okay, our next item is from Monday, November 28th, and that, believe it or not,
Well, it looks familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah,
And
that
the
is
picture got ahead of me there.
Vermont State House. I've been there.
I have too.
Yeah, a lot of people have been there.
Well, it's interesting because it's Vermont, anybody can just walk in there and walk around and nobody challenges you.
And you know what? That dome, if you look at the picture,
Yeah.
the reason that's gold colored the way that it is because it's made of gold.
Okay.
And they might have used all of,
And who's that up on top?
that's a statue of somebody, and I don't know who.
Well, I
That-
did know, but I can't think it was a woman.
I don't
I
know.
mean, it's a mythical woman.
Hetty Green.
I don't think so.
But the amount of gold it takes to cover that dome might be all of 2 ounces.
Is that so?
Very, very
Very
small
thin,
amount of very
gold,
thin
gold leaf.
gold leaf. Okay, this is from VT Digger. What do you got for a title?
Vermont's climate plan is built on a foundation made of paper. Aha, that doesn't sound too good.
good. Vermont has a plan to combat climate change, but the plan rests on a foundation of paper because Vermont's most consequential energy policy papers over the region's fossil use and does not move the needle when it comes to making our region's power supply more renewable. You know, our electricity is almost entirely from renewable energy.
It is that. Most of it comes from Hydro-Quebec.
Yeah, that's right. And our fossil fuel use is for heating our houses and driving our cars and stuff like that.
Yep.
And we're just not working on that the way that we should be.
The way we should be.
We're
Right.
putting in cold weather heat pumps, but we've got to do more about the vehicles. So, should we go on?
Battery-powered vehicles are the way to go, and it is the way they will be going.
I
And
absolutely
one of the
agree
biggest
with you.
reasons is they're so economical to operate.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And to repair them.
I mean,
There's almost no
if you
moving
think about
parts.
the reasons people have for wanting to have the old internal combustion cars, one that I have heard
Inertia.
is they like the noise that they make if you put on an aftermarket.
Well, you couldn't
exhaust
sell a
system.
Harley if you made it quiet.
Oh, you could. I think you could.
There are quiet bikes, but they're not made by Harley.
Harley makes an electric bike.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Okay. Our next item
Well,
is
this is another wind
another
turbine.
wind
Didn't we
turbine.
see one of these already?
Yes, we saw one. Sorry
gotta
about
put it
that.
up just so
This is
people
from
can see it.
Renews.
Come
And
on,
I'm
you.
sorry that I have so many pictures of wind turbines, but you know, there's so many wind turbines going in. What do you got for a title?
Wind turbine. Renewables providing nearly a quarter of U.S. electricity in 2022.
That's
Now,
kind of
that's
surprising.
interesting.
U.S. renewable energy sources provided almost 23% of which is not quite a quarter, but it says nearly a quarter, 23% of the nation's electrical generation during the first 3 quarters of 2022, according to a report by the Sunday Campaign, which reviewed data released the day before Thanksgiving by the United States Energy Information Administration.
Interesting,
Yeah, I thought so.
but strange.
Okay, we should go on,
A
Tom.
nice picture here of an engine test.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. This is from BBC.
Well, the picture came from Rolls-Royce.
Yeah, the picture came from Rolls-Royce. You're right.
Rolls-Royce makes more than classy automobiles.
Do they still make cars?
They do. Oh, yeah. A new Rolls-Royce going to cost you $250,000.
I thought Rolls-Royce cars were sold to somebody.
Well, they might be, but the brand name,
Yeah, the
somebody else
brand
might
name
be
is
making
there.
them,
I think
yeah.
Rolls-Royce is
I think you're right.
specializing
I think you are right.
in jet engines and
Jet engines
stuff
and
like
ships
that.
engines and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Rolls-Royce tests a jet engine running on hydrogen.
Hydrogen.
Hydrogen?
Hydrogen? Rolls-Royce is putting a small aircraft engine through tests that could one day lead to huge changes within the aviation industry. The engine itself is almost completely conventional, but this is the first time a production aircraft engine has ever been run on hydrogen.
Now that's interesting.
It is.
And first of all, just containing the hydrogen in a gas tank, a hydrogen tank.
Airbus,
That'll go on a plane.
Airbus is actually already starting to manufacture tanks.
Oh yeah,
to
well,
put in.
I think we talk about this
We will.
later
Yeah.
later on.
Okay, I'm gonna get us going farther.
Well, we're on Tuesday, November 29th.
Thank you.
So
And this is
we're
from Clean
catching up.
Technica. Yeah, Clean
And we got an
Technica.
interesting picture of
a plant,
with solar panels on
a large
battery,
part of the roof.
which is in Georgia. Which
It's
is
in Georgia, and unfortunately, there's roads here, but I don't see any vehicles that are clear enough that you could actually know how big that plant is.
Well, you can see it's big.
You can see that it's big. My
Well,
guess is
there's a road on the left, and there's a couple. Looks like a couple of vehicles on it.
okay, but I was unable to get a clear enough
That
picture.
is large.
Yeah. Why don't you put it up? And
That's a good question. I think I'll conform with your wills.
as I said, this is from Clean Technica. What do you got for a title for this?
Hyundai plans 3 battery factories with an annual capacity of 90 gigawatt hours.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
A gigawatt is a bigawatt.
That's right. Motivated by the Inflation Reduction Act, Hyundai broke ground on a $5 billion electric car factory near Savannah, Georgia.
So it's building it in the U.S.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Also, with partners SK On and LG Energy Solution, it is building 3 battery factories with a total capacity of 90 gigawatt hours. And the thing that's interesting about this, Tom, is that the Inflation Reduction Act, which, by the way, was not entirely passed by Democrats with with the bare majority they had, the Inflation Reduction Act,
It was bipartisan.
it was sort of bipartisan.
Strongly Democrat sponsored, but there
There were enough Republicans to put it through. And who is benefiting from this? Mostly, it seems to be people who are living in the so-called red states, the Republican states.
That's interesting.
And the reason is because
That's very interesting.
it's just where these companies are finding it easiest to employ people.
Yeah.
So they get the benefit of it. Now here's a picture that I
A nice
love.
picture of a truck.
Why don't you put that
Pull it
up?
right up.
I was telling Tom
That's
before
an electric truck.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was telling Tom before the
Now that truck
show
is huge.
Yeah, before the show started, I said I looked at that truck to find out what its capacity is, and that truck hauls 450 tons of ore. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah,
I mean, you can see by the little ladder on the front,
yeah,
which sort of scales into human height.
yeah.
And you can see how big that truck is.
Yeah.
That thing is huge.
That thing's like probably close to 4 stories
It's
tall.
about as big as a small house.
Well, it's certainly a whole lot bigger than a tiny house. You could probably put two tiny houses in the back of it without
I think you could
damaging
easily.
them.
Well,
Okay.
it's a Caterpillar 793 electric truck.
Yep.
And it says, and I quote, Caterpillar makes one gigantic electric truck to rule them all.
Yeah, this is a reference to the Lord of the Rings. This is from
Oh, is
Clean
it? Oh, yeah?
Technica. Yeah, one ring to rule them all. It was
Oh, yeah?
Lord of the Rings. The latest electric truck from Caterpillar is a zero-emission version of the company's massive diesel-powered
Yeah, put that picture up
793 mining truck. It will help push EVs to greater heavy-duty use as it demonstrates a battery-powered electric drive that can tackle some of the toughest jobs on Earth.
When we talked about on an earlier show a mine where they use trucks like this at a net gain of energy,
Yes.
the trucks went uphill
Uphill,
Empty,
empty. I don't
and
remember.
downhill full, and
Yep.
they generated more energy than they used.
This thing is telling me that there we go. Sorry about that.
You were saying?
There was a sign that came up in the middle of the picture while you were talking.
Oh,
Anyway,
a sign.
a sign.
I didn't see
It
it.
said, "Remind me tomorrow." One of those things that happens when you're using computers.
Let's take a look at that truck again. That is a huge
It's big.
truck.
It's big.
Huh?
Yeah, it's big. I mean, if you think about it, there's a walkway, probably about 20 feet up in the air, on the same level as the driver's cab, and I'll bet you could put a tiny house on that.
You probably could.
This thing is
You probably
gigantic.
could.
And you know, one of the things about these big trucks is, think about this for a minute. That thing is too big to put on the road anywhere.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So in order to get that truck to a mine
They
operating,
got to take it apart.
they have to take it in pieces,
Yeah.
I think, and assemble it at the mine.
Either that or airlift it.
Oh, yeah, right. The tires on that thing are big enough that you could, again, tiny house, you could put a tire on its
I
side.
would say that a guy standing next to the tire would be dwarfed.
I think a
He's
man
not
of
as-
normal
not
height.
as tall as the whole,
Yeah,
as the whole tire.
I think that a man of normal height would have his head at about the same level as the axle.
Probably a little bit higher than that, but
You
not
think
by
so?
much.
Okay, we should go on, Tom.
I think so. Let's see if
Our next item
We've got a
shows that
picture
we have
here
a
coming
picture
up
of a
here.
solar array. It's already up.
looks like a solar array to me.
Yeah, this is
It
from
happens
BBC.
to be in South Africa. Well,
That is
whatever
correct.
And it's on a beach.
It's almost on a beach.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is from
comes from the BBC.
BBC. What do you have for title?
South Africa turns to solar to help stop power cuts. Well, it's true, but it's not just South Africa that's doing it.
Well, South Africa's got a problem because they have been so reliant on coal. And
Well, it's politics.
it is. Okay. To try to help solve the problem of frequent power cuts and boost its environmental credentials, the South African government is undertaking efforts to boost its solar power generation capacity. To do this, it is encouraging firms in the solar sector to tender for contracts.
Well, historically, the South African government has been controlled by people friendly to coal interests.
That's right, yeah. And they don't have an imagination to think about,
Well, now
Solar and wind
economics
power.
is hitting them straight in the face.
and they've been trying to figure out how to put in nuclear power plants, and the nuclear power plants are too expensive.
Oh no, they're going to build them in a factory and they're going to bring.
There was an article that appeared today, and I believe
We'll
we're
talk
going to
about
be
it next
talking
week.
about it next week,
Yeah.
saying that the
Ain't gonna
new
happen.
scale power plants that they planned on building in Montana, all of a sudden, and they haven't even broke ground on these things, all of a sudden they're costing double what was originally estimated.
Well, we've talked about that phenomenon before. I mean,
Absolutely.
nuclear power is, let's face it, it's over.
It's just
I mean,
so
people want to
expensive.
continue it, but it's over.
Yeah. Okay, we're up to Wednesday, November 30th, and we have a picture of a V2G charging site. That means vehicle to grid, and that it means that if the grid needs
Come on,
electricity, you can get the electricity from the vehicle, which you have previously charged. I see here.
Right. Oh,
There it
we
is.
go.
There it
There
is.
we go. Bingo. Nope.
There you go. Okay, and this is
Vehicle
from
to
Clean
grid
Tech.
charging site. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So what's going on here?
Well, why don't you read the title, and then I'll read the
Vehicle
synopsis.
to grid solutions could open fast lane to net zero future.
Yep.
Now,
MIT.
that says a lot.
It does. MIT research published in the journal Energy Advances shows that as the number of EVs rise, the collective fleet's batteries might function as a cost-effective, large-scale energy source. This could have significant effects on the energy transition itself, both for electric vehicles and for the grid.
So what we're saying is these collective fleets batteries
Yeah.
can be considered as a battery in itself.
That's correct. And you have, in this case, you can see that there are delivery trucks and there are school buses there. And those things will get charged at night when
When they're
nobody
not
wants,
being used,
when they're not being used.
and electricity's cheap.
Exactly. And then during the daytime, if there's a demand for electricity and the grid can't supply it elsewhere,
They
can
got
go to
'em.
the vehicles and say, we want some of that back. So,
And it looks like they're equipped to do it.
yes.
Interesting
Okay.
thing. It's interesting how these things are going to change
Absolutely.
a lot of things.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's move
Okay.
along here. We got a nice picture here.
We have a picture. This picture is from the South Tyrol, which is in Italy.
Oh yes, I was just going to mention where it is, but I'll let you finish talking.
And
about
this is from BBC. And I have been in the Tyrol, but not in the South Tyrol.
it. Oh, okay.
And I can tell you that
Well,
stuff.
Tyrol is an autonomous province in northern Italy.
South Tyrol is. Tyrol is a province in Austria. There's
Okay.
yeah, and they're adjacent to each
They're
other.
the same. They're basically the same place,
Yeah,
but they're
and
in
the
two different
people who
countries.
live in South Tyrol, who are Italian, historically have been German speakers.
Yes. Yeah.
So, okay, what do you got for a title?
The Alpine villages producing their own power. That's interesting.
This article was interesting. There are about 1,000 hydropower plants in South Tyrol, and the vast majority of them are small and medium-sized, ranging from tiny ones powering a single farm
Yeah.
to clusters of more sizable ones covering an entire valley supply. With
Well, for a long time, Tyrol was kind of out of the loop, so they built their own power system.
yeah, that's right. With Europe in an energy crisis, they are getting a lot of attention. And what's happened is the price of electricity in Europe has gone to like probably 3 or 4 times as much, maybe 5 times as much as we pay here.
Yeah,
South Tyrol is paying half as much.
that's interesting.
And so
Well,
people in
they're all
Germany,
generating
and,
their own power.
yeah, and they're saying, how do you do this? Well, how do I do that? Simple. My grandfather put in a hydro dam back in 1922.
That's exactly what happened.
Exactly. That's what it was.
Well, they didn't have access to grid power,
That's right.
but they needed power to operate.
Tom, I've told you about my grandfather, who was one of those early adopters.
Yeah, yeah.
He had electricity in his house a good 10 years before anybody else in the town he lived in had electricity. He had a telephone 17 years before anybody else in the community.
He had the only
had a
telephone in town.
He didn't have the only telephone.
Uh-huh.
There were 3 telephones.
3 telephones.
One was at his house. One was at the hardware store that he owned. Actually, it wasn't a hardware store. It was a greengrocer and sewing. He sold sewing stuff, cloth and stuff like that. But it did also sold hardware. And I've been writing these books, and I've used that hardware store as a model for the hardware store in one of the books.
Uh-huh.
Keeps coming up. And then there was the 3rd phone, which is at the doctor's office.
Okay.
So anybody who needed the doctor could go to the hardware store and access the outdoor telephone
At the hardware store.
at the hardware store to call the doctor's office, which was in his home.
Yeah.
So the thing provided for his telephone service and for the community. And my understanding was it was hooked up to the national telephone system fairly early on. And in the course of 17 years, he made 3 calls.
Wow.
I think like one was to New York and the other 2 were to St. Louis or something like that. Anyway,
Well, we got another picture coming up.
we
if I
have a
can find
picture.
it here.
That's right. Whoops, I went too far. There we go.
There we go. And
This is an Airbus, and we were talking about hydrogen being used for aircraft, and there it is. And
Let's
if
try-
Tom will
let's
put
try
it
and
up,
get it. There we go.
people can actually see it. There you go, Tom.
Where's that cursor?
Click
There it
There
is.
you go.
That's
So
an
this is-
interesting airplane. It's an electric airplane.
It's an electric airplane.
I
and
never,
the-
ever thought I'd ever see an electric airplane.
Yeah, and it's running on hydrogen instead of a battery. It's got
This one is?
Yeah,
That's
and
what
that green thing in the middle of the fuselage is actually a kind of a cutaway to 2 hydrogen tanks.
Oh, that's what the article says.
That's right. This is in Clean Technica. and-
Airbus designed a cold heart for its new zero-emission plane in record time.
Yeah, this I thought was super impressive. One challenge for fueling aircraft with liquid hydrogen to power the aircraft is that it has to be kept at a rather cold temperature,
That's cold.
253 degrees below
that's
0
cold.
Celsius, which is 423.4 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit.
I don't have a thermometer that reads that low.
You know what happens if you drop a goldfish into something that temperature?
It snaps in half or something like
Oh
that.
no, it just
Shatters.
freezes solid instantly.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you about liquid nitrogen, which is a whole lot easier to deal with.
Well, it's not as cold.
It's nowhere near as cold. Okay, but Airbus is serious about doing that. It took an empty warehouse in a town in Europe, and in little over a year, it had its first cryogenic, which means super cold,
Yeah.
hydrogen tank. Let me tell you about my experience with liquid nitrogen. I used to work in a factory where they made phosphors and fluors, and they had to test colors. So they had a color lab. But the colors had to be tested in a room where the colors themselves were not contaminated. So the lights were strictly off, nothing in there by the way of light.
Is that so?
Absolutely. The walls were painted black, the ceiling was painted black, the floor was
Yeah.
painted black, everything, the equipment was all painted black. Now, source of light, dials. You remember the old dials they had on things?
Yeah.
Dials on the testing equipment, which was phosphorescent, that was on. The lab technician wore a white lab coat.
Yeah. So you could see him.
When you went in there, by the light of those dials, you could kind of vaguely see him moving around. All right, in the course of this, in order to get the reading that he needed to make something really cold. So how do you make something really cold very
You blow
fast?
on it.
Well, what they did was they just dumped about a tablespoon of liquid nitrogen on it.
Okay, that'll work.
Liquid nitrogen is very, very
It's pretty cold.
It's pretty cold. So the liquid nitrogen spills off of this thing and it hits the floor. And then it just skitters around on the floor like water in a red hot pan. It's just going
I can
like
visualize
that.
it.
Now,
Yeah.
as that's happening, it cools the floor down like mad, and it cools down the entire room below about knee level, waist level, something like that. And that makes all the water vapor in the air condense. So the guy in the lab coat is suddenly walking around in this little thing, and you can see this
Clouds.
cloud going like this as he does. If this had appeared in a movie, science fiction movie,
People wouldn't
they would have
believe
said, this is too much, way over the top. But there it was, and
How about that?
yeah. There it is, Tom. We have
I
finished
think we've done it. We've
our
had some pretty good stuff.
500th episode. That's
Well,
our
let's hear it.
We're applauding ourselves. Okay, why don't you put the two of us up? We do have to
That's
say
this
goodbye
guy.
to the people who watch our show.
I'll have to say my trademark statement.
Please do.
Y'all come back now and see us, you hear?
That's right. And I want to point out, this is our 500th show. You have just watched history in the making.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Adios.
We're waving goodbye. Bye-bye.